Hey everyone, on this episode of EdTech, we're going to be talking about Dante domain management, digital canvas, and collaboration wireless collaboration software. All this on EdTech.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is EdTech, episode 60, Ed Network.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Crestron.
This is EdTech, a monthly higher ed tech podcast. I'm your host, Bill O'Donnell. Today I'm joined by Ernie Bailey.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. And as always, the one, the only, Mr. Rob Raspberry. How are you, sir?
Greetings and salutations.
Indeed. So, we got a couple of topics to talk about today. The first one comes off of Commercial Integrator, and it covers about how Audinate's Dante Domain Manager is now getting released. And if you're not familiar with Dante, well, first off, I'd say go look at CobraNet and just move on past that. But Audinate is the one who is the company that actually came up with the Dante protocol, which is audio over IP. And in this case, the domain manager is actually meant for if you already have Dante on your network, and say you have other folks who are going to be coming on campus, or you want to control who has access to your Dante network and everything. You can actually check and see who has access to what and where and everything else. So Ernie, I'm going to kind of check on you with this one, in the fact that you guys have been already putting in Dante on the network and everything. So I'd like to hear a little bit on your thoughts on this one.
The first 2 or 3 rooms, it really wasn't an issue, but we've been looking at Dante Domain Manager for the last couple of months. As we've added more rooms and there are multiple buildings, both be able to manage what other people bring in and give us some more management control over the various Dante networks, bringing them into a single point.
It's one of those things where you look at it, and before it used to be, oh, you need an audio drop here? Oh yeah, just put a network drop. We'll go and put it in, and which is great. But now you look more on we're kind of focusing more on the security / user access point of this, in which, and I can totally understand that, because if you look at it from a network admin perspective, they go, okay, you just gave them an open port to do what? Okay, what? And so it's one of those things where, the first part of this was always about the flexibility and being able to do this where you need, and then the other portion of it is actually, okay, how much access do we want to give them? So hypothetically, say you end up putting a couple of Dante network drops or a couple of Dante drops in your student union area. And you go, okay, hey, we have a band. We want to, plug this music out to the rest of the system, and to the rest of the building and everything. Which, if you're like me, who may have 1 or 2 amps that actually have a Dante interface built in, it's easy because you can then just cascade over things, no problem. On this end, it now turns into more of the, oh yeah, you can plug in, and from the Dante stuff, you're just going to go to the following rooms, and that's it. There's no, we can do this across the whole network. No, you won't, because it's not that we don't trust you. It's just that we don't trust you. So yeah, it's one of those fun little bits on this one, and it's one of those things where I think it's also going to cross over into some of the AV over IP or SDVoE kind of thing. So Ernie, have you seen anything that Crestron or SVSI or even Aurora doing any of those things with?
We're looking at Crestron's NVX system as our next generation of products coming out, and at ISE, Crestron did announce the NVX 352, which actually allows you to bring Dante in or out through the NVX stream.
Oh, so either as an embedder or de-embedder?
Right, exactly. And I mean, we're still looking at that. We're talking with Crestron about what we can do, how we can leverage that into a couple systems that we're designing right now. We're still waiting for an actual release date of the 350.
Oh. So in this case, as I say, it's one of those things where I just look at it and it's an interesting feature. Now, Rob, actually, I do have a question for you because you know as well as I do, whenever there's a live event kind of coming on and everything, is this one of those things that makes things easier in more of like a cascading room kind of setup? I mean, normally some folks go, oh, we'll just stream it. And it's like, well, you can, but then you have to get folks, logged in and go find the stream and, oh, it's not the right link or anything like that. In this case, it sounds like it might be one of those things where you can just kind of go and say, oh yeah, here, just, hit this button and, enable this link, that kind of thing. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it sort of seems like it's basically the device manager for, audio over IP, which I think is very necessary and certainly will help, security folks, breathe a little easier knowing that you can dedicate access to different rooms, different ports, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's definitely a natural progression of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it really sounds like, I haven't looked at it, but it sounds fantastic. If you can, tell which ports, to send Dante and allow access to and allow security on users, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's one of those things where, we talk about this, but it is one of those things where you have to play nice with the network folks. Now, granted, no duh, probably be one of the no duh things is like, yeah, it's more than likely, your network folks are going to put this on a separate VLAN, but it's trying to maintain access to who has what and everything else. So moving on from that, over the past weekend or so, there was the South by Southwest Awards, and they had the Interactive Innovation Awards. And this article comes to us via AVNetwork.com, and really it kind of talked about two things. It talked about digital canvas and then digital wallpaper, which, if you're not familiar with these things, digital canvas is really meant for more of like inside the classroom. It is meant for more of like being around the classroom and, kind of ideas and tossing things around. Whereas digital wallpaper is kind of taking that stuff and putting it out across the campus. Now, if you're not familiar with seeing some of these things, we've seen things from folks from like NEC and LG. I believe even Sony has had a few things cooking up with this and everything, in which they're really starting to push the limits of your OLED screens and everything, in which literally they can wrap around and you can kind of canvas things literally like wallpaper. So from a branding perspective, it is kind of an interesting thing to do on campus. The things that just to, as I say, Rob, I'll just bounce this back to you for a second. In terms of collaboration and doing like digital canvas stuff, what would be some of the things? What would be some of the things you would like to see more about? Like, for example, I know our handy dandy phones have always had starting to have near field communication. I know the wonderful Cisco Spark boards are supposed to have those things, but it's one of those things where I think it's seeing like the digital wallpaper and digital canvas. It's one of those, okay, how do you get the folks to, how do you get, what are some of the things that you think are really going to get folks to say, ooh, that's cool? Because otherwise you're just going to see a giant screen.
Well, I mean, I think it might sort of provide sort of a bridge into the next topic, which is talking about maybe wireless presentation or things of that sort.
Yeah.
But basically being able to, come in and be able to put out art or whatever on a video wall sounds like a good application.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of collaboration in the classroom it could be applied for. Mm-hmm. Like you said, cross canvas digital signage. It adds a little interaction to it. It sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can see those applications. That's where it would be used.
Yeah. Now, Ernie, this is one of those things that just I'm kind of curious about and everything. And this is one of those things where it is a little bit of digital signage in this one. I mean, just to give everyone a perspective on these things, I will admit up front, William Patterson, we're a campus of about 11,000. Rob, you guys are hovering around where, as I say, a bit more than that, I would hope.
A little more. I mean, overall it's about 22 or around in there. Yeah. Hey.
Little. They're only twice the size of our campus. But when you're talking about things like digital wallpaper, it's about, as I say, if anything, when you look at these things, it's about how do you get the biggest impact, or how do you get the most amount of attention on these things. And with digital signage, it always turns into, how do you catch how do you catch people's eyes? If you're thinking about these things, it used to be back in the day, one of the things you would see would be the digital projection mapping, and I'm pretty sure part of my old soul is trapped somewhere within a Christie Spider unit somewhere. Which, if you haven't seen one of these things, they're a one rack unit image processor, and boy, I hope you like geometry, because that's all that thing does. But think of it this way, it's now getting easier in the application of, like, how do you get this out here? And as I say, and Ernie, you know this as well as I do, every now and then there are classrooms where this would actually make life a little bit easier, because folks go, oh, this will be a great classroom, and you look and you go and say, I can see the support beams in the middle of the room. How are we gonna work this through? And it's one of those things where you look at it all and go, okay, this is just making life a little easier. We can put this up here. We can work this around this way. And granted, to a certain degree, having a giant video wall might be overkill, but at the same time, when you're dealing with a certain class size, or in Ernie's case, if you're dealing with certain detail focus and everything, yeah, you kind of need to actually blow things up and have them that big in order to understand the detail and content you're looking at. So, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we've looked to consider the digital canvas idea, where you take multiple high-res projectors, create a single image, and then you can bring a fairly high-res, 2 or 3 1080p images at full resolution on that to be seen at the same time. We're not actually doing that anywhere right now. Like I said, we're considering it. I've seen the concept. I think it's a great idea. We go back to 2004, 2005. We used a research tool that was basically, I guess, the first one of these, called Access Grid. It's only available on internet too. Robert, do you remember that? But
we are going way back now, Ernie.
Yeah,
okay.
But that was the first type of digital canvas thing that I saw. And when I started reading the articles, that came to my mind. In fact, I had to go back to about 3 or 4 people that have been here a long time to remember the name of it. But that allowed us to show multiple video conference images from each site. However many cameras you threw in, they went down the pipe, and everyone could pick which cameras they looked at of yours. We use that for some research collaboration. We even put it in a couple of auditoriums so we could have really big screens and teach students about how to do that. That has gone away, but that was the first thing that came to my mind when I started thinking about this, and seeing the progression to that point. And how you can leverage, as you get higher resolution projectors or displays, build the big video wall with 4K or even 8K displays, bezel-less, so you can put them together, and then you can show multiple big things. You show different angles of the same thing. We do left and right, or before and after, in our medical imaging that we do. So if we can show them both at the same time at full resolution,
that's the thing where I think it really does showcase, because some folks will go and say, oh, 4K and oh, 8K. It's like, well, no, in Ernie's case, when he has, multiple images, and yeah, the clarity and you have to be able to show these things as a good compare and contrast. there's a reason why they make medical grade displays and why certain things are rocketed so high. It's because we're talking a level of, oh, take a look at this MRI scan for a minute. Yeah, you see this little bit of shade here, and notice how much I needed the contrast. See that there? Yeah, that's the beginning of a tumor, or you know what I mean. But it's one of those things where I think in Ernie's case, it's why we have to have things so high? Well, why we have to have stuff so high and everything? Well, because it's for medical applications, and not noticing a small detail really can mean a life and death.
A slight change in color means a whole lot.
Yeah. Even in grayscale. So it's one of those things that just, it's an interesting application. Speaking of applications, this one comes to us from Campus Technology, in which Crestron has gone and updated their Air Media wireless presentation system. So if you're not familiar with it, Crestron, we present, there's Immersive has their Solstice program, Kramer has their VIA. And in this case, Crestron actually updated a bit of their stuff to where it's now Air Media 2.0. Now, a few things, the nice idea about one of the nice things about wireless collaboration, and I'm sure folks have it on their campus and everything, but it's the folks where they go and say, hey, I want to share something with the class, or I want to share this. And, a lot of times students, I won't lie, our students live and die via their phones or their iPads or their laptops. And not everyone always has the USB-C or micro or lightning connector. So it's an easy way to just show things via the network. One of the downsides, though, is that there are a couple of things that come into play. One is the video latency, and two is the a lot of times most school networks these days have implemented 802.1x, which is the authentication protocol. And it's nothing mind-blowing, but I do know from time to time, I still have associates who have Macs and everything will get things kicked off. But it seems that Crestron has actually updated some of their stuff, because before some of the frame rate wasn't as high as it could have been. These days they've kind of improved it to I believe at the minimum they hit was 30 frames per second, which is fine. You if you're using it to show things off, no problem. If you're showing off a YouTube link, but there are ways about it. And really, my counter to that is, if you're showing something off your phone that's off of YouTube, you can just as easily show it off the PC or your laptop that's there. But anyway, so as I say, first off, Rob, I'm going to go to you. What do you guys, as I say, have you guys been using Air Media, or have you guys been using Solstice, or you just hand someone a giant HDMI cable with an adapter and said, here you go, plug it into the laptop port?
I think the latter. Actually, we don't have a whole lot of wireless presentation going on campus. The law school is using Solstice. I've seen that, and it seems to work pretty well. Mm-hmm. But there are concerns, on the network side about, deploying it all over campus. So that is a concern that they have to look at and see what can be done to successfully implement that.
Now, here's my counter to you on this one, and this kind of goes where folks talk about both, as I say, Crestron and Solstice and a couple other folks have all gone down this path in which they make both. There's a hardware portion and then there's a software portion. Now, for the law school, are they doing the software or are they doing the hardware pods? Because this will get into it.
I think they're going to have the hardware pods. Mm-hmm. And so, I guess in creating that, using that device itself and creating its own technically, a little local network, that's helped out a bit. But to be honest, I still don't fully understand what the major concern is sometimes with some of these devices.
Okay. So this is where I can see this is happening, because we've been talking this over with our own network folks, and Ernie, as I say, let's put it this way, Ernie's probably got out of the three of us, Ernie's probably gotten the more ease of path, because he has a better relationship with the network folks than I do. Right now I might be in the doghouse, but that being said, here's the thing about it. is that from Immersive's case, they have both the software and the hardware. Now, the software, well, you end up installing that on a local PC, which is perfectly fine. However, Immersive and a couple other companies have started coming up with their own enterprise management software, which is perfectly fine. However, most network admin folks would like to look and go and say, oh, you have your AV equipment? Okay, once again, we're putting that on a separate VLAN, so we don't have to worry about, it's minimized point of impact stuff. So from a hardware perspective, they look and they go, oh, yeah, is it hardware? Yes. Okay. And, in our case, we've given them a list of a white list of all the port numbers we need, the DNS addresses that they need to add in. And they look and they go, oh, we can lock everything else down? Yeah. Okay. Hardware-wise, we can do that. Software-wise, okay, we're going to have to come up with specialized PCs and, or we're gonna have to hard code all this stuff. So no, but it's one of those things where it's one of those things you want to approach it more from the how do you make life easier for them. So that's why I think the hardware, it's weird. Would I like everything to be software? Of course. I mean, makes life easier, and the fact that I have one less piece of equipment that I have to worry about, getting fried by 1 extra milliamp on the outlet. But software-wise, then it turns into, okay, how do you actually manage all the VLANs? And then it turns into, okay, how much of my CCNA am I going to start using now? So, yeah. But as I say, Ernie, just to flip this back to you for a second, are you guys doing more hardware, software, or are you guys just looking at it and going, we'll get there?
We're doing most of the hardware. We've been deploying the Air Media for 4 or 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm liking what I'm seeing with the new ones. They will now mirror iOS, which is new to them.
The other thing too is that and this is just as I say, this might be not a product plug, but it is good to see that they're starting to work this in. The new DMPS 300 and 200 series, or specifically in this case, it's the 350C and 250C. The Air Media is actually baked in, which I'll admit, is in terms of an all-in-one solution, it's very nice. It's one of those you just here, what do you need? And it's the you throw everything but the kitchen sink at it kind of.
Well, they've also put in their Mercury, VoIP device.
Yes.
That is very nice. And I think we're getting better, but the issue we still have, or that I have and see, is that it's not plug and play for the faculty. Even if you have the app on your phone or on your tablet, you still have to look up the room thing, type it in, or type in the IP address. Students don't have a problem with that.
No.
Our folks don't have a problem with that. My team doesn't have a problem going into it. But, when we have a tenured professor who's well seasoned, that's just too many steps to go through to present from his or her phone or tablet, or bringing his students in there and waiting for them to do it. It's time consuming. Well,
would it make life easier if there was, say, like I said, I know Immersive does this. Would it be easier if, say, there was their already discovered rooms, so they look and go and say, oh, I'm in room 1117. Oh, connect. But
yeah, and that is what you see using an Apple TV on the enterprise system. Once you can get it into the enterprise system, yeah, you select your room, and then it may pop up a 4-digit access code, so you don't have someone hacking into your presentation.
Because students would never do that.
Never. But if I could have something that simple for the instructors to use with the Air Media, I think that would probably lend itself to more wireless presentations. I think we probably put in a lot more wireless gateways than are being used. It's not that expensive to put into a new system when you're doing it, so why not go and do it and make it available? Yep. Maybe it's going to be 3 or 4 years before we get people using them regularly, but we have them available.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're right. It's make it simple. It's one of those things where you want to make it friendly for folks to use, and then from there, it's one of those. Um, yeah, it's one of those things where you look at it all and you go and say, "Oh, that's great," and then you get the mass adoption. And then the other thing, and this is one of those things. Just looking at it, in terms of all this, yes, the hardware is always going to be there to support all this stuff, but the bigger portion is the software. And on top of that, if you look at like say Mersive and you in their plan, they do a lot of interesting and unique update things, but with it, it comes with a cost because it's a software update. They're constantly pushing the new software updates and everything. And I won't lie, one time I did take the hardware box over their hardware box over to our network security folks, and they said, "Oh, it's a ViewSonic box." I'm like, "No, it's from Mersive." They're like, "Yeah, no, Bill, we literally plugged it in to check its MAC address. It's a ViewSonic box." And I went, "Well, yeah, it's an appliance." And I'm like, "It's the software, guys. I'm like, it could, for all I care, it could be an HP box. It doesn't matter." But the big thing is that Mersive does actually do an annual upkeep for these things. Now, my question to you guys is this: say you had all the robust parts and everything, would you pay? Would it make more sense to do just a big enterprise license cost? Or would you guys only have like oh, we only need it for X, Y, and Z boxes? Would you guys rather do? Yeah, it's the small deployment versus the large deployment. Ernie, I'll take your thoughts on this one first.
Well, I'm going to vote for the large deployment, the enterprise version every time, because then I don't say no, you can't do it here, but you can do it across the hall. That never goes over well.
yeah, that's a good point.
So either we have it or we don't is kind of the policy we try to take here.
Yeah. I as I say, I take a similar stance. Rob, in your case, it was, like I said, as I say, big enterprise license or onesie twosie, and then like I said, baby steps or just dive straight into the deep end.
I'd rather like to dive straight into the deep end. I think, you're always thinking about scale. And, you start with baby steps and then, maybe this, maybe that. No. Start, enterprise, manage, be capable of managing any space, any classroom, I think is the way to go. But we are in a university. And sometimes you have silo A that wants to do something different than silo B, silo C, silo D. So until you get sort of that mass adoption, unfortunately, a lot of times it's, the baby steps. But I agree with all of you. I'd rather go across the board enterprise and start large and go from there.
All right, fair enough. That's about all the time we got for this one. Mr. Raspberry, where can the fine folks find you on LinkedIn or Twitter or just find you on the street?
Yes, on the street now. I am on LinkedIn. Rob Raspberry, very easy name to remember. I'm in the IT department at Drexel University, so you go on the Drexel University side under IT, you'll find me.
No, fair enough.
All right.
Ernie, they can, as I say, similar fashion?
Exactly the same thing. I'm in the IT department at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, on LinkedIn quite often, so
all right,
look for me there.
Fair enough. I'm Bill O'Donnell. You can find me on Twitter as well as LinkedIn and a couple other scoundrelous places. But yeah, so that's it. We'll have a month. I'll see you guys next month.